Before anyone ever told you to believe in yourself, they told you to work harder. They taught you that effort is proof, that exhaustion is honorable, that if you are tired, you must be doing something right. But the truth is uncomfortable. The hardest workers in the world are not the richest. They are the most trapped. This audiobook is not here to inspire you. It is here to remove a lie so deeply rooted that most people defend it without realizing it. A lie that keeps you busy instead of powerful, tired instead of free, patient instead of positioned. If hard work alone created wealth, you would already have it. What you are about to hear will change how you see effort, success, and your own life. Not instantly, but permanently. Because once you understand why the system praises hard work but rewards ownership, you can never unsee the game. Listen carefully. This is not motivation. This is clarity. Chapter 1. Hard work was never designed to create wealth. Hard work was never meant to make you rich. It was meant to keep things running. From the very beginning, societies needed people who would wake up on time, follow instructions, and repeat the same tasks every day. Farms needed workers. Factories needed hands. Offices needed people who would show up, stay quiet, and do what they were told. Hard work became the rule because it kept systems stable, not because it created wealth. When you work hard inside a system you do not own, your effort keeps that system alive. The building stays open, the company keeps earning, the machine keeps moving. But none of that means you control where the rewards go. Civilizations do not rely on people who ask who owns the land, who owns the company, or who controls the results. They rely on people who accept their role, work longer hours, and take pride in endurance. This is why hard work is praised so loudly. It keeps order. It keeps things predictable. But ownership was never part of the promise. Hard work decides who keeps the lights on. It does not decide who owns the building. It decides who carries the weight, not who collects the reward. The world quietly separates two roles. One group carries effort, the other controls outcomes. One group is paid for time, the other is paid for decisions. One group is told to try harder, the other decides how the system works. Wealth does not flow to the person who sweats the most. It flows to the person who controls the direction, to the person who decides what is built, how it is priced, and who benefits when it grows. Most people are never told this. They are taught to believe that effort alone will be noticed, rewarded, and remembered. But systems do not reward loyalty. They reward position. This is the first truth most people never hear, because once you understand it, you stop confusing effort with progress. And once that confusion ends, the lie loses its power. Chapter 2. Effort is invisible to the market. Effort feels real to you, but it is invisible to the world. You feel the long hours, you feel the stress, you feel the pressure in your body and the tiredness in your mind. But the market does not feel any of that. It does not see how hard something was for you. It only sees what came out at the end. The market is not emotional. It does not reward struggle, sacrifice, or intention. It responds only to results, to value, to outcomes that solve a problem, save time, reduce pain, or create desire. Two people can work very hard and only one will be rewarded. Not because one tried harder, but because one produced something the market actually wanted. This is why so many people feel confused. They did everything they were told. They worked late. They skipped rest. They stayed loyal. And yet nothing changed. Their income stayed the same. Their freedom stayed the same. Their life stayed small. The reason is simple. Effort lives inside you. Value lives outside you. You can pour effort into something that does not matter, and the world will ignore it. You can apply effort to something useful, rare, or scalable, and the world will respond quickly. It does not ask how tired you were. It does not ask how long it took. It does not ask how unfair it felt. If you work for 10 hours digging a hole no one needs, the market owes you nothing. If you solve one problem people are desperate to fix, the market will reward you far more than your effort suggests. This is uncomfortable because it removes the idea of fairness. Many people believe life should reward hard workers equally. But markets are not built on fairness. They are built on usefulness. This is why complaining about effort is pointless. The world is not watching your struggle. It is waiting for value. Once you understand this, your focus changes. You stop measuring your days by exhaustion and start measuring them by impact. Effort is personal, results are public, and only what is public gets paid. Chapter 3. Exhaustion is not proof of progress. Exhaustion feels like proof that you are doing something right. It feels earned. It feels honest. When you are tired, you tell yourself the day mattered, that the struggle meant progress, that the pain will eventually turn into reward. This belief is deeply rooted, and that is why it is so powerful. But exhaustion only proves one thing. Energy was spent. It does not prove direction. It does not prove growth. It does not prove that anything moved forward. Many people are deeply tired, yet exactly where they were years ago. They wake up early, push through the day, collapse at night, and repeat the cycle. Their bodies are worn, but their lives have not changed. This happens because effort without direction creates motion, not progress. You can move constantly and still go nowhere. Like running on a treadmill, the speed increases, the sweat increases, but the location never changes. Exhaustion becomes dangerous when it replaces thinking. When being tired becomes a badge of honor, people stop asking hard questions. They stop asking whether the work is leading anywhere. They stop asking who benefits most from their effort. Being busy feels productive, but it often hides the truth. It hides misalignment. It hides poor positioning. It hides the fear of stopping to think. Progress leaves signs. It creates leverage. It opens options. It increases control. Exhaustion, on the other hand, often reduces all three. When you are constantly tired, you do not have the energy to reflect. You do not have the clarity to question. You do not have the space to redesign your direction. Exhaustion keeps you locked inside the routine. True progress does not always feel heavy. Sometimes it feels quiet. Sometimes it feels slow. Sometimes it looks like fewer actions, not more. The most dangerous lie is believing that tiredness equals advancement. Many people exhaust themselves for years and call it discipline, when in reality, they are just repeating effort that no longer serves them. Energy spent is not the same as ground gained. Progress is measured by how much closer you are to control, freedom, and leverage, not by how drained you feel at the end of the day. Chapter 4. Hard work without leverage. Resets to zero. When hard work has no leverage, everything resets the moment you stop. You can give an entire day of effort, and when the day ends, nothing remains. The next morning starts the same way it always does. Zero progress carried forward. Zero momentum saved. This is one of the most invisible traps people live inside. Hard work without leverage produces short-term results only. You work, you get paid. You stop, the reward stops. There is no carryover. No growth that continues without you. No progress that survives your absence. Leverage is what allows one effort to keep working again and again. Without it, effort is consumed the moment it is used. Like water poured into sand, it disappears immediately. This is why so many people feel stuck even though they work non-stop. Their days are full, but their lives are flat. Nothing builds on top of itself. Nothing compounds. Every task must be repeated from the beginning. When your work depends entirely on your presence, you are not building something. You are maintaining something. Maintenance feels like productivity, but it creates no future. Leverage changes this completely. It allows effort to stack instead of vanish. It allows yesterday's work to support today instead of being erased. Without leverage, you are forced to stay constantly active just to remain in the same position. Any pause feels dangerous. Any break feels costly. Rest becomes stressful because progress cannot continue without you. This is not freedom. This is dependence. Many people confuse consistency with growth. They show up every day and assume something must be building. But consistency without leverage only preserves the current state. It does not elevate it. True progress leaves residue. It creates systems, assets, or structures that remain after effort ends. If nothing remains, the work was temporary. Hard work without leverage does not move you forward. It keeps you restarting your life every morning. Chapter 5. Replaceability is the price of grinding. Grinding feels powerful on the surface. Long hours, relentless effort, always available, always pushing. But beneath that image is a quiet cost most people never see. When your value comes mainly from effort, you become easy to replace. Grinding proves that you can endure. It proves reliability. It proves obedience. But it does not prove importance. And the world does not protect what is easy to swap. If what you do can be learned quickly by someone else, your hard work does not raise your value. It lowers it. Because the harder you work at replaceable tasks, the more you train the system to see you as a part, not a pillar. Replaceability keeps power out of reach. When you are replaceable, you cannot negotiate, you cannot slow down, you cannot step away. The fear of being replaced forces you to keep grinding, even when it no longer makes sense. This is why many people feel trapped by their own effort. They worked so hard to prove themselves that they built a role anyone else could fill. Their reward for grinding became more responsibility, not more freedom. The world quietly separates people into two groups: those who carry tasks and those who carry decisions. Task carriers can be replaced. Decision holders cannot. Grinding focuses on doing more of the same. Rarity comes from doing something different, from holding knowledge, skill, or control that cannot be easily copied. Hard work without uniqueness turns you into a resource, and resources are always priced down. True security does not come from working harder. It comes from being difficult to replace. Chapter 6. Time is the weakest resource you can sell. Time feels valuable because it is limited, but that is exactly why it is the weakest thing you can sell. You only get a fixed number of hours each day. No matter how motivated you are, no matter how disciplined you become, you cannot add more time. When your income depends on time, your future is capped before it begins. Selling time looks normal because almost everyone does it. You are paid by the hour, by the day, by the month. The message is simple and quiet. Show up, stay present, and you will be paid. When you leave, the payment ends. This creates a dangerous relationship between life and money. Your value becomes tied to your availability. Your freedom shrinks as your responsibilities grow. The more you rely on selling time, the harder it becomes to step away from it. Time-based income forces you into constant activity. If you slow down, income slows down. If you stop, income disappears. This pressure makes rest feel guilty and reflection feel risky. Even sleep can feel like lost opportunity. Over time, this creates fear. Fear of breaks, fear of illness, fear of saying no. Because every pause has a cost. When money is tied to time, peace becomes expensive. Time also ages. Energy declines. Focus weakens. What you could do easily in your 20s becomes harder in your 40s. When income depends on time, aging becomes a threat instead of a natural process. This is why selling time traps people in urgency. There is always a rush, always a deadline, always a sense that you are falling behind. Time-based systems train you to feel late, even when you're doing everything right. Another quiet cost of selling time is that it trains you to think small. You start measuring success in hours instead of outcomes. You think in shifts, not systems. You plan days instead of futures. When income is limited by time, ambition has nowhere to go. Big dreams shrink to fit small schedules. Even effort loses meaning because no matter how hard you work, the return is fixed. Time is also fragile. A single event can remove it. Illness, family emergencies, burnout, or exhaustion can take time away instantly. When time is your only asset, one interruption can collapse everything. This is why time-based work creates constant stress. Deep down, you know it can be taken from you. You know it does not last. You know it depends on forces you do not control. Selling time also disconnects effort from impact. You can spend hours doing something meaningless and still get paid. You can solve something important quickly and be underpaid. Time does not measure value. It only measures presence. Because of this, time rewards endurance, not intelligence. It rewards staying longer, not thinking better. It keeps people busy instead of powerful. When you sell time, you are renting your life in small pieces. You are giving away the most limited thing you have in exchange for something that disappears quickly. Wealth requires distance between effort and reward. It requires systems where yesterday's work still matters today. It requires structures that do not collapse when you step away. Time cannot do this. Time cannot scale. Time cannot multiply. Time can only be spent once. This is why people who rely on time feel stuck even when they earn more. More money just means selling more hours. More responsibility just means more pressure. The cage grows, but it is still a cage. Freedom begins when income no longer depends on constant presence. When value exists even when you are not there. When results continue without your direct effort. Selling time keeps you close to survival. Building value creates distance from it. Time is precious for living, thinking, learning, and building. It was never meant to be the main thing you sell. When you understand this, you stop trying to earn more by working longer. You start trying to earn differently. And that single shift changes everything. Chapter 7. Why hard work feels safe. Hard work feels safe because it gives clear rules. Wake up, do the task, stay busy, go home tired. You know exactly what is expected of you, and you know how to meet that expectation. There is comfort in that. When you work hard, you do not have to make difficult decisions. You do not have to question direction. You do not have to ask whether the path itself is wrong. You only have to keep moving. Hard work removes uncertainty. Thinking creates doubt. Hard work creates certainty. When you are busy, you feel useful. You feel responsible. You feel like you are doing your part. Even if nothing changes, the effort itself gives emotional relief. It tells you that you are not failing, you are just tired. This is why people cling to hard work even when it no longer serves them. Hard work protects the ego. You can blame the system, the timing, the economy, or bad luck. But you do not have to question your choices. Questioning is painful. Effort is familiar. Hard work also protects you from judgment. Society respects busy people. Exhaustion is praised. Long hours are seen as proof of character. When you say you are tired, people nod in approval. When you say you are thinking, waiting, or stepping back, people become uncomfortable. So hard work becomes social armor. It makes you look serious. It makes you look committed. It makes you look worthy, even when it keeps you stuck. Hard work also removes responsibility for outcomes. If you are following instructions and working hard, then the results feel out of your control. Success or failure becomes someone else's problem. You did your part. Thinking strategically changes that. When you stop grinding and start choosing, outcomes become your responsibility. If it works, it is on you. If it fails, it is also on you. That level of responsibility scares most people. Hard work lets you hide inside effort. Strategy forces you to stand alone. Another reason hard work feels safe is that it keeps you inside motion. Motion distracts from fear. When you slow down, fear becomes loud. Fear of making the wrong move. Fear of wasting time. Fear of realizing you have been climbing the wrong ladder. So people stay busy to avoid that silence. Hard work fills the day. Thinking exposes the truth. There is also a deeper reason. Many people were praised only when they worked hard. Love, approval, and respect were attached to effort. Over time, effort became identity. If they are not working hard, they feel worthless. So they keep pushing, not for money, not for freedom, but to feel valid. Hard work becomes emotional safety. But safety is not growth. Hard work creates predictable pain. You know how tired you will be. You know how much it will hurt. But thinking creates unpredictable outcomes. It may lead to success, or it may force you to admit you need to change direction. Predictable pain feels safer than uncertain change. This is why people often reject easier, smarter paths. They feel wrong. They feel undeserved. They feel risky. So people choose difficulty even when it is unnecessary. Hard work also delays judgment. As long as you are working hard, no one can accuse you of giving up. You are protected from criticism. But the cost of that protection is time. Years can pass while nothing improves. Hard work is safe because it keeps you inside the known world. But safety is exactly what keeps people small. Growth requires discomfort of a different kind. Not physical tiredness, but mental exposure. The discomfort of choosing, the discomfort of saying no, the discomfort of letting go of familiar effort. Hard work feels safe because it asks nothing new of you. Thinking demands a new version of you. And that is why so many people choose exhaustion over change. Chapter 8. Ownership is the real divide. Ownership is the quiet line that separates two very different lives, even when the effort looks the same. Two people can wake up at the same time, work the same hours, feel the same level of stress, and yet one slowly moves toward freedom, while the other stays stuck. The difference is not talent, it is not luck, it is ownership. When you do not own what you're working on, your effort has a ceiling. You can give more time, more energy, more loyalty, but the result always belongs to someone else. You help something grow, but you do not control where that growth goes. Ownership changes the direction of effort. When you own something, even small progress matters. A little improvement stays with you. A small gain stacks on top of the last one. Your work does not disappear when the day ends. It remains. It waits. It continues. Without ownership, effort leaks away. You finish the task, get paid, and start again from zero. Nothing follows you forward. Nothing builds underneath you. This is why ownership is not about titles or paperwork. It is about control over outcomes, about deciding what happens when value increases. When you own nothing, you are always dependent. Dependent on approval, dependent on permission, dependent on being needed. That dependence quietly shapes your behavior. You become careful. You avoid risk. You say yes when you should say no. Ownership removes that fear. When you own part of the result, your relationship with work changes. You think longer. You plan differently. You care about structure, not just effort. You stop asking how hard you should work and start asking where your work should live. Ownership also changes how the world treats you. People negotiate differently with owners. They listen differently. They respect boundaries differently. Because ownership creates leverage, and leverage changes power. This is why systems reward owners even when they are not present. The system exists for them. It sends value upward automatically. Those without ownership must stay close. They must remain visible. They must prove usefulness again and again. Absence becomes risky. Ownership creates distance. Distance creates freedom. Many people misunderstand this and think ownership is only for a few. They think it requires massive money or special access. But ownership starts small. It starts with control. Control over a process. Control over a product. Control over an idea that does not disappear when you step away. Even partial ownership changes your position. It changes how effort behaves. It turns effort from fuel into construction. Without ownership, you are paid for time. With ownership, you are paid for results. This is why some people work less and earn more over time. Their effort is placed inside something that keeps working. While others work more, and feel poorer. Their effort is consumed immediately. Ownership also teaches patience. When you own something, you understand growth takes time. You are not chasing quick reward. You are building something that compounds slowly. This patience creates better decisions. Those without ownership are forced into urgency. They need immediate reward because nothing carries forward. That urgency creates stress and short-term thinking. Ownership calms that pressure. Another hidden difference is how mistakes are treated. When you do not own the outcome, mistakes feel dangerous. They can cost you approval or income. When you own something, mistakes become information. They help improve the system you control. Ownership turns learning into an asset instead of a risk. This is why ownership is the real divide. Not effort, not intelligence, not motivation. Effort is common. Ownership is rare. Most people are trained to be good helpers. Very few are trained to be builders. Helpers keep systems alive. Builders shape where systems go. Ownership is not about being better than others. It is about being positioned differently, about placing your effort where it stays instead of where it disappears. Once you see this divide, you cannot unsee it. You begin to notice how many people are working hard inside structures that will never reward them beyond survival. And you begin to understand why ownership quietly decides who moves forward and who stays busy forever. Chapter 9. Approval is a poor investment. Approval feels valuable because it comes with warmth. It comes with smiles, praise, acceptance, and the feeling that you belong. From an early age, many people learn that being liked is a form of safety. When teachers praise you, parents relax, bosses approve, and peers respect you. Life feels stable. So you learn to chase approval quietly, often without realizing it. The problem is that approval feels like progress, but it does not build anything that lasts. When you work mainly to be approved, your decisions slowly stop being your own. You begin to filter your actions through other people's reactions. You ask yourself what will look responsible, what will sound impressive, and what will avoid criticism. Over time, this habit reshapes your direction. You start choosing what feels acceptable instead of what creates real value. Approval is fragile. It depends on moods, opinions, politics, and perception. What earns praise today can be ignored tomorrow. What is celebrated in one room can be criticized in another. When your sense of progress is tied to approval, stability disappears. You are always adjusting, always explaining, always trying to stay in good standing. This is why approval is a poor investment. It has no compounding effect. It does not grow while you sleep. It does not protect you when circumstances change. It does not give you leverage when you need it most. Many people work incredibly hard, not to build something meaningful, but to avoid disappointing others. They say yes when they should say no. They take on extra work to look reliable. They stay quiet to look agreeable. They follow paths they did not choose just to avoid judgment. The reward for this behavior is usually more expectations, not more freedom. Approval trains you to prioritize appearance over impact. You start focusing on how things look instead of what they produce. You polish effort instead of improving outcomes. You become careful instead of effective. There is also a hidden emotional cost. When approval becomes the goal, self-worth becomes unstable. On good days, you feel confident because others respond positively. On bad days, you feel uncertain because the feedback changes. Your sense of value rises and falls based on reactions you cannot control. This keeps people stuck in a loop of performance. They are always on stage, always trying to be seen in the right way. This performance drains energy that could be used to think, build, and create. Instead of asking what matters, they ask what will be accepted. Approval also discourages ownership. Building something of your own often looks strange at first. It invites doubt, criticism, and misunderstanding. New ideas rarely receive instant praise. They look risky. They look unnecessary. They look uncomfortable. People who depend on approval avoid these paths because they feel unsafe emotionally, even if they are powerful financially. This is why many people choose respectable struggle over uncomfortable growth. Struggle earns sympathy and praise. Growth invites silence and skepticism. Approval pushes people toward familiar effort, not meaningful leverage. Another problem with approval is that it delays honesty. When you want to be liked, you avoid difficult truths. You soften your thoughts. You hide disagreement. You follow consensus even when it is wrong. Over time, this weakens judgment. You stop trusting your own thinking and start borrowing the thinking of others. Wealth, freedom, and control require clarity. Clarity often requires disagreement. Approval makes disagreement feel dangerous, so people abandon clarity to preserve comfort. Approval also does not scale. You can only be approved by so many people at once. As your responsibilities grow, pleasing everyone becomes impossible. Those who build their lives around approval eventually face a crisis. They reach a point where the expectations conflict, and no choice satisfies everyone. At that moment, they must either disappoint others or abandon themselves. Those who invested in approval feel lost at this stage. They built their identity on reactions instead of direction. Assets behave differently. Skills, systems, ownership, and leverage do not depend on praise. They work quietly. They grow regardless of opinions. They do not care whether people understand them immediately. They reward consistency and clarity, not likability. When effort is directed toward building something that lasts, approval becomes optional. You can accept it when it comes and ignore it when it does not. Your stability no longer depends on external validation. Many people fear losing approval because they confuse it with respect. But real respect comes from outcomes, not compliance. It comes from results that stand on their own, not from effort that needs explanation. Approval often rewards those who fit in. Value rewards those who solve problems. This is why approval is such a weak currency. It feels good in the moment, but it buys nothing durable. It cannot be saved. It cannot be transferred. It cannot protect you when circumstances change. When you stop chasing approval, something uncomfortable happens at first. Silence increases, praise decreases, doubt appears. But something else begins to grow quietly. Independence, clear thinking, the ability to choose long-term value over short-term comfort. This shift does not make life easier immediately, it makes it real. The people who build meaningful control over their lives learn this lesson sooner or later. Approval is pleasant, but it is unreliable. It is an emotional reward, not a structural one. Value is different. Value does not need to be liked to be rewarded. It only needs to be useful. When you place your effort into value instead of approval, your progress stops depending on moods, opinions, and permission. It becomes grounded in outcomes. That is why approval, no matter how tempting, remains a poor investment. Chapter 10. Thinking is the highest form of labor. Thinking is often misunderstood because it does not look like work. There is no visible effort, no sweat, no long hours that others can easily measure. From the outside, thinking can look slow, passive, or even lazy. But in reality, thinking is the most demanding and most powerful form of labor that exists. Physical work uses the body. Repetitive work uses habit. Thinking uses responsibility. When you think deeply, you are forced to choose. You are forced to decide what matters and what does not. You are forced to face uncertainty without hiding behind movement. This is why many people avoid thinking and replace it with activity. Activity feels productive. Thinking feels exposed. Thinking requires you to sit with questions that do not have easy answers. It requires you to admit when something is not working. It requires you to consider that the path you are on may be wrong. That kind of honesty is uncomfortable, so most people stay busy instead. Grinding fills time. Thinking shapes direction. One clear thought can save years of wasted effort. One correct decision can outperform thousands of hours spent in the wrong place. This is not exaggeration. History proves it again and again. Progress does not come from doing more of the same. It comes from doing the right thing at the right time. Thinking also creates leverage. When you think well, you reduce unnecessary action. You remove steps. You simplify. You find the few actions that matter instead of drowning in many that do not. This is why people who think clearly often appear calm. They are not carrying extra weight. Thinking forces you to see patterns. Patterns in behavior, patterns in systems, patterns in results. Once you see patterns, you stop reacting emotionally and start acting intentionally. You stop being surprised by outcomes because you understand how they are produced. Most people react to life. Thinkers design it. Thinking also demands patience. You do not get instant feedback. There is no immediate reward. Sometimes the reward comes much later, after a decision quietly reshapes everything. This delayed payoff is another reason thinking is avoided. Humans are wired to prefer quick results. But wealth, freedom, and control are delayed outcomes. They require decisions that do not pay immediately but compound over time. Thinking is also tiring in a different way. It drains mental energy. It forces focus. It requires you to hold complex ideas in your mind without escaping into distraction. This kind of effort is harder than physical exhaustion because it cannot be numbed easily. Busy work numbs discomfort. Thinking amplifies it. When you think, you confront trade-offs. You accept that choosing one path means rejecting another. You accept that not everything is possible at once. This clarity removes fantasy but builds power. Thinking also separates responsibility from blame. When you think deeply, you stop blaming circumstances and start examining structure. You ask why outcomes repeat. You ask what incentives exist. You ask where control actually lives. This level of thinking changes how you see the world. You stop believing stories and start noticing mechanics. That is why thinkers are dangerous to systems built on obedience. Obedient people follow instructions. Thinkers question incentives. They ask who benefits. They ask what happens if conditions change. They are harder to control. Thinking also teaches restraint. When you think clearly, you do not rush into action just to feel productive. You wait. You observe. You prepare. You act only when the move is meaningful. This restraint looks like slowness to those addicted to motion. But restraint is power. Many people confuse speed with progress. They rush into effort without understanding the terrain. They act before they understand the game. Thinking slows you down at first, but it speeds you up later by preventing mistakes that cost years. Thinking also reduces emotional decision-making. When you think well, you are less reactive. You are not pulled by every opportunity or threat. You can say no without guilt and yes without desperation. Your actions become grounded instead of impulsive. This emotional stability is not accidental. It comes from understanding consequences before they happen. The highest paid decisions in the world are made quietly. They are not made by the busiest people, but by the clearest ones. People who decide direction, structure, and ownership are paid for thinking, not for effort. This is why thinking scales while grinding does not. One good idea can affect millions of people. One strong system can run for decades. One clear strategy can outperform generations of effort. Thinking also builds confidence of a different kind. Not loud confidence, but calm certainty. When you understand why something works, you do not need constant reassurance. You are not shaken by temporary setbacks because you understand the structure underneath them. Most people live inside noise. Noise of opinions, noise of urgency, noise of constant movement. Thinking cuts through noise. It creates silence, and in that silence, clarity appears. This is why thinking often feels lonely. There is no crowd. There is no applause. There is only you and the responsibility of choosing wisely. But that loneliness is temporary. The results of thinking create independence. Independence creates space. Space creates freedom. Thinking is not about intelligence alone. It is about willingness. willingness to pause, willingness to question, willingness to accept uncomfortable truths. Many people could think better, but they choose not to because thinking removes excuses. Once you see clearly, you cannot pretend anymore. And that is the real cost of thinking. But it is also the real reward. Because once you learn to think deeply, you stop trading your life for movement. You start shaping it with intention. You stop being impressed by effort and start respecting outcomes. Thinking is the highest form of labor because it determines where all other labor goes. Everything else is execution. And execution without thinking is just motion without meaning. Chapter 11. The correct use of hard work. Hard work itself is not the problem. The problem is where it is aimed and what it is attached to. Most people are taught to treat hard work as an identity. If they are working hard, they believe they are doing life correctly. If they're tired, they feel honest. If they are struggling, they feel noble. Over time, effort becomes who they are, not what they use. This is where everything goes wrong. Hard work is a tool, nothing more, nothing less. A tool has value only when it is used in the right place. A hammer is powerful when it hits a nail. It is useless when it hits air. Hard work works the same way. When hard work is attached to low-value tasks, it multiplies exhaustion. When it is attached to the wrong direction, it speeds up failure. When it is attached to systems you do not control, it strengthens someone else's position, not yours. The correct use of hard work begins with understanding that effort should serve strategy, not replace it. Many people work hard to avoid thinking. They keep themselves busy so they do not have to ask uncomfortable questions. Questions like whether the work is leading anywhere, whether the reward is capped, whether the effort is building something that remains. Hard work used correctly is not constant. It is selective. It is applied intensely, but not endlessly. It is focused on things that last, not things that disappear at the end of the day. It is used to build, not just to perform. The right use of hard work often looks slower at first. There may be fewer visible results in the beginning. There may be periods where effort goes into learning, setting up, experimenting, or failing quietly. This phase does not feel productive to people who measure life by activity, but it is essential. Hard work should be used to create leverage, to build skills that are rare, to develop understanding that compounds, to construct systems that reduce future effort instead of increasing it. This is where most people resist. They prefer effort that gives immediate feedback, immediate pay, immediate praise, immediate reassurance. But immediate rewards often come at the cost of long-term control. Hard work should be uncomfortable in the right way. Not physically draining every day, but mentally demanding at key moments. It should push you to learn things that feel difficult at first, to think through problems that do not have simple answers, to design solutions instead of repeating tasks. Used correctly, hard work shortens struggle instead of extending it. Another sign of correct use is that effort creates options. When hard work is applied well, it increases your ability to choose. You gain flexibility. You gain control over your time. You gain the ability to say no without fear. If your hard work is doing the opposite, shrinking your options, it is being misused. Hard work should also move you closer to ownership. Not necessarily ownership in a legal sense at first, but ownership in influence, understanding, or control. The effort you give should make you harder to replace, not easier. It should move you away from dependency, not deeper into it. There is also a timing element. Hard work is most powerful when applied early to learning and building, and later to refining and scaling. Many people reverse this. They grind endlessly on execution, but neglect thinking, positioning, and design. This keeps them busy, but stuck. Correct use of hard work respects rest, not as laziness, but as strategy. Rest allows reflection. Reflection allows correction. Without rest, effort becomes blind. Blind effort repeats mistakes faster. Hard work should also reduce chaos over time. If years pass and life becomes more frantic, more rushed, and more fragile, something is wrong. Properly applied effort creates order. It simplifies. It stabilizes. It creates systems that absorb stress instead of transferring it to you. One of the clearest signs of misuse is when hard work becomes a substitute for courage. Courage to change direction. Courage to leave a path that no longer serves you. Courage to admit that effort alone is not enough. Hard work should support courage, not replace it. When used correctly, hard work is quiet. It does not need to announce itself. It does not seek constant recognition. It is satisfied with delayed reward because it understands what it is building. This kind of effort feels different. It does not drain you the same way. It may be challenging, but it feels aligned. It feels purposeful. It does not leave you questioning your life at the end of the day. Hard work should not consume your identity. You are not here to be tired. You are here to build something that gives you space to breathe. Effort is meant to buy freedom, not postpone it. When you finally place hard work where it belongs, you stop measuring your life by how much you endured and start measuring it by what you created. And that shift changes everything. Chapter 12. The truth no one tells you. The truth. No one tells you is not hidden because it is complex. It is hidden because it is uncomfortable. From the beginning, you were taught a story that sounds fair and feels good. Work hard, stay patient, and life will reward you. This story keeps people calm. It keeps people hopeful. It keeps people moving forward without asking too many questions. But it is not the full truth. Hard work alone does not lead to wealth, freedom, or control. It leads to endurance. It trains you to tolerate more pressure, more stress, and more waiting. It makes you stronger at surviving, not at escaping. This truth is rarely spoken because once you see it, you stop playing the game the same way. The world quietly runs on a different rule. Outcomes matter more than effort. Position matters more than intention. Ownership matters more than loyalty. These rules are not written on posters because they would cause people to question everything. Most people are encouraged to work harder when life becomes difficult. Very few are encouraged to step back and ask whether their effort is being placed in the right place. Hard work becomes the answer to every problem, even when it is the wrong answer. This keeps people busy, not free. The uncomfortable truth is that many people are not failing because they are weak. They are failing because they were given the wrong target. They were told to aim effort at motion instead of structure, at activity instead of leverage. Hard work feels like progress because it creates pain. Pain feels meaningful. It makes people believe something important is happening. But pain without direction is just wear and tear. The truth is that wealth is quiet. It grows in places where effort compounds, not where it is consumed. It grows where decisions are made, not where tasks are completed. It grows where systems exist, not where hours are traded. Another truth no one tells you is that the world does not owe you a reward for trying. This feels harsh, but it is freeing. Once you stop expecting fairness, you stop wasting energy on disappointment. You begin to focus on what actually works. Effort is invisible. Results are visible. Control is visible. Ownership is visible. The market does not respond to how badly you want something. It responds to what you build. This truth hurts because it removes comfort. It removes the idea that effort guarantees success, but it gives you something better in return. Clarity. Clarity allows you to redirect your energy. It allows you to stop proving yourself and start positioning yourself. It allows you to stop running faster and start running smarter. Another truth rarely spoken is that many people stay poor not because they lack opportunity, but because they are emotionally attached to struggle. Struggle gives identity. It gives stories. It gives sympathy. Letting go of struggle feels like letting go of meaning. But struggle is not a requirement for worth. The world does not reward suffering. It rewards usefulness. There is also a quiet fear underneath all of this. The fear that if you stop working hard, you will be seen as lazy. The fear that if you slow down, you will fall behind. The fear that if you question the rules, you will lose safety. These fears keep people obedient. The truth is that slowing down to think is not laziness. It is responsibility. Questioning the rules is not rebellion. It is intelligence. Refusing to waste effort is not arrogance. It is respect for your life. You were never meant to spend your best years exhausted, anxious, and waiting. You were never meant to trade your entire life for survival and call it success. Another truth no one tells you is that freedom rarely looks impressive at first. It looks uncertain. It looks quiet. It looks like fewer actions and more thought. It looks like saying no when others say yes. It looks like patience when others rush. This is why many people never choose it. They confuse noise with progress. The truth is that wealth is built by placing effort where it multiplies, where today's work supports tomorrow instead of replacing it, where value remains even when you step away. Once you understand this, you cannot unsee it. You start noticing how many people are tired for no reason, how many lives are full of effort but empty of control. You also start noticing your own habits, where you work to feel busy instead of effective, where you push out of fear instead of intention, where you stay because it feels safe, not because it leads somewhere. This awareness can be uncomfortable. It may even feel heavy at first, but it is the weight of truth, not the weight of exhaustion. The final truth is simple, even if it takes a lifetime to accept. Hard work is not the goal. Freedom is. Control is. Clarity is. Hard work is only valuable when it moves you closer to those things. Anything else is just noise. Once you understand this, the lie loses its power. And when the lie loses its power, your life finally becomes yours.